The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum has been the standard for investor education in Jamaica for decades, where top financial minds provide comprehensive insight into the market and ideal investment strategies and opportunities for our clients. Celebrating 37 years of excellence in investment banking. The Mayberry Virtual Investor Forum, investing in Jamaica.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our weekly investor series. I'm your host, Dan Theok, Senior Vice President of Investment Banking. Today we have a special investor briefing for you, and we'll be looking at Supreme Ventures Limited, a company that Gary is more than familiar with, being the executive chairman for some years now. Today we'd also like to extend apologies for our executive chairman, Christopher Berry, who will not be able to join us today. Welcome, Gary. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Dan. Welcome, everybody.
If you're a fan of the content, then don't forget to subscribe. Also hit the bell to stay up to date with the channel. We upload content like this just about every week. Don't forget to stick around for our Q&A segment at the end of the program. So please log on and send us your questions. If you want to embark on your very first investment journey, you should make that step with Mayberry. Follow us on social media to learn more about how you can get started today. Okay, Supreme Ventures Limited, we want to talk about their 2022 year-end results, which were fantastic. And if we can bring that up on the screen, I'd like to do my quick analysis of it, as we always do. I don't need to declare conflicts. I think you people appreciate the conflicts between Gary being the executive chairman and MJE being the second largest shareholder. I think I've declared my conflicts, but nevertheless, I'll try to give you my best as possible independent review. First up, we look at the first slide. I want to talk about the net income of $50 billion, which is up by 16%. Gross revenues, folks, are $110 billion, so that's up 17%, but the net revenues, net of payouts, and the payouts to customer winnings were up by 22% to $80 billion, by the way. So $80 billion of prize winnings given out to customers this year, and that translates into the net income of $50.7 billion, which is up by 16%, as I said before. Gross profit of $11.3 billion, up 20%. After SG&A, which was up 13% of $6.9 billion, that resulted in an operating profit of $4.4 billion, which is up 32%. And then finally, after taxation and so on, a net profit after tax of approximately $3.1 billion, which is up a whopping 32% over the prior year. These are the audited numbers, folks. That's earnings per share of $1.15, total assets of $18.3 billion, up 7%, and their total equity up 11% to $4.7 billion. What's there not to like about SVL? So total assets of $18.4 billion. Company has net debt of only about $2 billion, $5 billion gross debt, $3 billion of cash. This is the textbook economics definition of a cash cow, a business that's throwing off over $3 billion of cash per annum, very low capex. Dividend payout ratio of about 90%. So it gives, one of the best dividend paying stocks in the market. I think only probably pitted by Careers in terms of dividend yield, but certainly in terms of absolute dividends and the growth potential, number one. In my book, current stock price, $26.40, and based off of the trailing earnings, that's a 22 times PE ratio, trading a little bit rich. In the main market average, that's about 10 times currently, typically 12 times, but it's the growth potential, no doubt, that has this stock trading, and there's great expectations of the future earnings growth for the business as we go forward. Next slide speaks to the revenues by segment. And again, this is the net revenues here. And you can see the lottery segment is up about 19% to $23.6 billion. Sports betting is up 20% to $14.4 billion. PIN codes only up by 5%, but again, net revenues up by 16%. So great performance overall there, and you can see the spread. Next slide shows the contribution, and so pictorially you can see the contribution and see that 47% of that contribution is coming from the lottery games. 47% this year versus 45% the year before. Sports betting up to 28%, shown in green, versus 27% in the previous year. Next slide shows the, and this is my favorite slide, the quarterly profits for the last 2.5 years. And we can see that we are well beyond the pandemic here now. First big hit from the pandemic causing quarterly profits to fall as low as $192 million. But you can see they very quickly adjusted to the environment. And in the last 4 quarters, you can see that profits have been trending up. 2 of the last 4 quarters, profits are above $1 billion for the quarter. And my expectation certainly is that $1 billion per quarter is the new trend. I said this to guests we had about 3 weeks ago, Jamaica Broilers, and in the very next quarter they turned a $1.4 billion profit. So Gary, we're raising the bar for you. Nothing less than $1 billion per quarter going forward, sir. And we have great expectations of growth. And I think when we have the Q&A, that'll come out a little bit more. And the final slide that comes up shows how the stock has traded in the last 2 years. And so we can see that this is traded at a high of about $36, I want to say, $33.73 to be exact. A low of $17 in the last 2.5 years. And if you didn't buy when it was below 17, 18, I'm here to tell you it's still not too late to buy at $26. So because of the great growth potential for this one, guys, I really do believe this is a great stock to have in your portfolio for the medium to long term. I mean, again, I think after we talk this out with Gary, you'll agree with me. But from my point of view, the growth potential is tremendous. This is one of those inflation-proof type stocks. So I'm not worried about recession. I should say recession-proof type stocks. Not worried about mild recessions. Not worried about high interest rates because it's a cash cow throwing off a lot of cash. So high interest rates, they're probably going to just make more money managing that portfolio. We've seen a lot of people were fearful about competition that came in about 2 years ago. And what are we seeing? They're making more profits despite the competition growing the lottery gaming segment by 20% in the last year alone. So definitely a very resilient company. Well managed, well run, throwing off a lot of cash, and then the expansion opportunities that we're going to talk about a little bit more in the segment, I think are huge. So, Gary, first question from me, I would like to talk about the digital innovations and the massive potential for growth from SVL. And of course, you're free to, if you want to open with any general comments about SVL. I have about 5 really great questions here, but first one for me is really to talk about the digital innovations and the massive potential for growth going forward for SVL.
Well, thank you, Dan. Good afternoon to everybody. It's a very good place to start, because when we came to SVL in 2017, I made the point that people saw SVL as a gaming company. We saw SVL as a transaction platform with a gaming business bolted onto it. When we started looking at the company from that perspective, you began to realize what the potential for growth was. we are now at a point where we not only believe in the digital expansion of SVL, we have looked on and we are now embarking on some people might think it's a seismic shift, where we no longer want to see the business as a gaming company, but we're moving towards SVL being seen as a technology company. And we'll be announcing an appointment of a new position, which will show how serious we are about moving towards being a technology company. And we have quietly, over the last 2 to 3 years, been making some developments that, has culminated in a disclosure we made earlier this afternoon. And, we've been building quietly some software solutions. We spoke the last 2 years about the fact that we have developed our own proprietary lottery software. It has been certified, and we are now pleased to state today that we're about to sign a deal with our Ghanaian subsidiary, Supreme Ventures Ghana, to be the exclusive provider of technical and management services to a new lottery company that is seeking to get a license in Ghana. Why is that important? Jamaica has a population of around 3 million people. Ghana has a population of around 34 million people. And so, if we're successful with our partners there, a company called Game Park Limited, and we're able to do in Ghana what we've done in Jamaica, I mean, you can extrapolate. We made 20 million US last year in a population of 3 million. If we're able to penetrate and do the same thing in Ghana, I can't even think about what that number looks like, but you can work it out proportionally. But the bigger point is that actual investment in a lottery software has now opened the dimensions of growth, opportunity, significant profit in a way that we could never envision before. And, if you think about it, it now, as I said, puts us in a position where we can bid on either service agreements, lottery agreements, right across the world, very large markets. And, that profit growth, that revenue growth, we can't count it. So what we're focusing now is how quickly we can execute, implement, and which carries us back to where you started. That digital expansion, right? We are now looking to drive that digitization much greater, because phase 1 is digitization, phase 2 is AI, and then phase 3 is where the world is, where the cutting edge of the world is now. So when we get there, it will be a totally different business at that point in time. So where are we now? We actually have an online business. So we have Acropolis Online. We have the SV Games app, which has all 11 of our lottery products that you can buy on the SV Gaming app. We have a fintech subsidiary, which is now in a position to roll out our bill payment, because we have developed a bill payment app. Obviously, there are other solutions that we have, and we're seeking the necessary approval. And you see people transaction on their mobile phones. Somebody walks up to the fisher lady, they pick out the fish, then they ask them for their code. You see the code being exchanged. The lady takes out her cell phone, she puts it in. You literally see the fisherwoman take out her phone, and when the funds turn up, she packages the fish and she gives it to them. Excellent. And that's a transaction that happens in Ghana over and over and over again. This is just in a simple fish market. And, right across the country. And it's interesting, in some places of Africa, they seem underdeveloped, but when it comes to things like mobile wallets, digital transformations, they're much further down the road than we are here. So I pause at that point to say that, within Supreme, we do have quite a bit of our business that is moving to that level. And, which is why we've now decided that, listen, we're going to hire somebody to just focus on that side of the business, to create the architecture, to drive the digitization, not just in keeping where we are now, but where we think the future is, and right across the company.
Great. So if I'm hearing you clearly, this is imminent. A mobile wallet of sorts. For SVL, as you look to expand in the marketplace. I mean, you guys are already handling, tens of billions of dollars per month.
Yes. It's one of the records we made last year, in that we did 109 billion in top line revenue. So I guess if you divide that by 12, it's almost $10 billion a month. So.
And I can't think of an entity handling more cash than you. that has more distribution points than you do, and so it seems ripe to me.
Yes.
As an analyst, for you guys to push in that direction.
Yes.
Mobile penetration is very high in Jamaica. Folks know how to use their phones, and it's clearly the direction that the government wants to go in
Yes.
terms of digital
Yes.
currency, et cetera. So I think it's just like the perfect fit. And then when we talk about providing creative financial solutions
Yes.
for our people and getting towards the unbanked, again, I think SVL is
Yes.
very well positioned in
No,
that regard.
we are, and as I said, the Bank of Jamaica is the purview for that overarching regulatory system.
Yep.
And we'll go through the necessary processes to get it. And as I said, I think once we're able to achieve that, and knock on wood, we get approval in a reasonable time. We think our solutions will help to digitize the country, bring a lot of our customers a lot of value, which is fundamentally that's what we do. We're here to serve the poor and underserved, primarily in the country.
Absolutely. I mean, I just look at your top-up sales services, which makes up now 24% of your revenues, which is selling what I'm going to call phone cards.
Yes.
And I go
phone
back
credit.
8 years, 10 years ago when we used to have phone cards, the physical thing.
Yes.
And
They still do.
and protecting your inventory of phone cards is a big thing. That's all being digitally transformed for the most part.
Yes.
80% of the transactions are now digital.
Yes.
And you guys control a significant segment.
We're the
of that
number one
market.
in the marketplace.
Yep. So it's easy to foresee you guys, moving in and expanding and doing much more with that. And the mobile wallet certainly excites me because it means, makes less cash on the road, lowers costs for you, and increases activity, makes it easier for people to transact
Yes.
with SVL, and expanding way beyond just gaming. So that's transformational. I mean, I really look forward to that. So you handle a lot of cash. I mean, and it's clear to me that going in this direction will also save you significant cost while also making your ability to scale up the business, internationally. So you mentioned Ghana, but obviously your vision has to be several countries. Like in the next 5 years, 10 years, what's the Gary Peart ambition? What's your ambition of, how many countries would you like to be in 5 years' time if you're just dreaming in front of folks today?
Well, I mean, the reality is that Supreme is already a global company. We have a small business in Guyana. We did with a simple setup in South Africa. I mean, Ghana is going to be big. It's significantly different from what we did in South Africa. In South Africa, we just beamed the draw to South Africa, and there was a partner there that took the risk where that's concerned.
Got it.
In Ghana, we have a partner that we're working directly with in terms of rolling out a lottery, which, whilst having risk, has significant reward associated with it. Because as I said, if you think about it, if we're able to do what we did in Ghana, we did in Jamaica, where now we're making 20 million US on average. I mean, 3 billion, about 20 million US. A population of 3 million. If you penetrate Ghana in the same way, you're talking about 200 million US, right?
Absolutely.
And if we miss by half, it's 100 million US, which is 5 times what you have here in Jamaica. So myself and the team, we're not necessarily thinking about other countries at this point in time. I mean, if it comes, we'll definitely take it on. We're now more focused on executing and getting it right in Ghana, because I think once we have established that we've executed, we've gotten it right, and we're driving a profitable business, it becomes easier to replicate and do it again.
Got it.
Right? And once we do it one more time, then I think we can have that conversation. Can we do 20, 60, 30?
Got it.
So
put another way then, what is your expectation of a reasonable rollout period in Ghana? Is this something that you should be able to roll out in 3 to 6 months, and hopefully look back in the next 12 months and see that it's really working well? I mean, how long do you think it's going to take you to roll out in Ghana?
Well, I think based on the plan that we have, I mean, obviously subject, to our partner getting the license. all things being equal. From the point at which the partner gets the license, I mean, we would expect to be in the marketplace, within 4 to 6 months. And, once you're in the marketplace 4 to 6 months, then within the first 2 months, you will know whether the game is successful or not. And so when you add that together, you're probably looking at about 8, 9 months before I would think an analyst can judge
how well it's going.
how well it's going. I mean, hopefully we know earlier, right?
Right, absolutely.
But with certainty, you will see it coming through in our numbers.
And the same is true of the competition that you sort of face here in Jamaica. I've heard, independent experts say that you should know within the first 6 months if these guys have been able to make a dent, and it's been a year and a half, 2 years, and I'm not too sure you're feeling the competition.
Well, as I said to people, I'm driving a bus, and I don't drive the bus by looking through the rearview mirror.
Right.
I just focus on the windscreen, and I'm happy that the team and myself were able to put together this kind of numbers. And as you said earlier, there are a lot of people that were expecting a reduction in our numbers. I think the fact that we have not only been able to increase the numbers, but increase it by the factor that you're seeing it, that says a lot. And that's what we're going to focus on, because we're not only seeking to exceed the expectation of our shareholders, but SVL also carries another responsibility. Another number that we're very proud of is that for the first time, we have contributed over $10 billion into the government coffers, whether through good causes, the regulator, taxes that we've paid. So what you're finding is that the deal the government has in terms of their structure makes sense. They didn't invest any capital, and they're getting a check for $10 billion every year, which is 3.3 times the profit I am making.
Yes.
So I do all of the work, I cut you a check. So I'm actually one of the most effective and efficient tax collectors that the government goes out there. And as I said, I'm incentivized to do the job. For me to make more money, I have to pay them 3 times more. So we're proud about that aspect of it, because with Chase, they give back to good causes, as the acronym indicates, culture, health, arts, sports, and entertainment.
Chase Fund.
So that's the Chase Fund, and I mean, we're the largest contributor to that fund, and it's something that we spend a lot of time on, and we're very proud to be able to contribute to that fund.
So your government contributions up to $10.4 billion for the folks out there, up 15% in the last year alone, and that's significant.
Yes.
That really is significant. So more than just a gaming company, and with the Chase Fund making significant contributions towards.
It's a side of the business, Dan, that some people are reluctant to speak about, but it's something that we're very proud of, because that's part of why the government has gone in this direction, right? Gaming and gambling will always occur. The issue is, can you capture it in a structure like an SVL, where it can then be funds can then be given back to the government to be used in a much more efficient way to grow these other areas, So implicitly, one of my objectives is there is an underground out there, and that actually is also a competition that we fight regularly with, in terms of finding different ways to reduce the size of that underground, because it then brings money into the formal system,
absolutely.
which allows us to pay more money into the governments, and then obviously they can help more Jamaicans, and that's what we're here for.
Yep, and then it's you do want to regularize these things, right? Because we have large institutional investors, pension funds, all investing in the SVL stock, experiencing great dividends, great growth in terms of capital gains. I bought the stock personally 5 years ago at $10, so at $26, I'm in love. I've never
not mentioning dividends, right?
Yeah, not mentioning the dividends, which are fantastic. Right. And I don't buy the lottery directly, which is cool.
So you didn't win the Super Lotto?
I didn't win the Super Lotto. I instructed a friend. I recommended highly to her that she should buy some of the tickets yesterday. I think the Super Lotto was up to 500 and...
The winner got $542 million.
$542 million.
The winner bought it from a store in Osborne's store in
Clarendon.
In Clarendon.
Clarendon?
Yeah.
The winner out there in Clarendon, please remember Mayberry Investments. You can come to us and bring your money. True story, I have a friend who won the lottery and invested $100 million with Mayberry, and he's doing really well. So to that winner out there in Clarendon, just remember Mayberry Investments. Good place to invest your money. It won't go missing. Nothing will happen to it. It will be perfectly safe.
Behave yourself.
Your money is 100% safe at Mayberry. That much I can say.
Yes.
That's a free ad for Mayberry. Gary, the next thing I think you guys have done a great job at, and I'd like you to just talk a minute or two about it. Government of Jamaica, you guys took over Caymanas, which was a huge loss leader. They couldn't turn a profit for years. It was just going down, 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 down. What's the story like? 3 years later, Caymanas, how is that going? Tell us a little bit about how that project, that company, how well they're doing.
I think yesterday was one of the greatest days I could have had where Caymanas was concerned. So we announced yesterday the launch of the Mute Mile, the second staging of the Mute Mile. The Mute Mile is the preeminent event at Caymanas. And last year, the Mute family, who are actually one of the largest shareholders in SVL, if not the largest shareholder in SVL, they have increased their sponsorship. So the actual Mute Mile race is the purse is going to be $150,000 which is about 23 million. So it's moved up from 15, 18 million to 23 million, whatever that increases, from $125,000 to 150.
Yep.
But more importantly, there was a picture that was taken, and it had representatives from basically all the stakeholders out at Caymanas. The chairman of the BGLC, the head vet in the country, Dr. Watson, great guy. Jockeys, the winning owner from last year, Colin Carjan. Howard Hamilton, and Solomon Sharp, the chairman, executive chairman at SVRL, he made the comment that this is the industry. And it's only together that we can move the industry forward. And it was a pleasure to see, because it took some time. We were not always happy. They weren't always happy to see me. My good friend Howard Hamilton, I always remind him. Went live on radio and said investment bankers do not know how to run a racetrack.
Yes.
And so every single time we had a important jump forward,
yes,
I would say, Howard, how's your friendly investment banker doing now? And I'm happy to say that he was speechless yesterday. So I trouble Howard a lot, but I mean, he keeps us on the straight and narrow. But the fact that we have been able to pull this industry together, and as a group, we're moving it forward. And, we were able, for example, last year to sign an agreement with the trainers and jockeys and owners where SVRL has committed to pay 49% of their GGR towards the purse. So whatever the increase in the GGR is on an annual gross gaming revenue on an annual basis, we will apply that increase to the purse. And so what it did, we knew that discussions about purse is a friction point, and so we just made a commitment. So therefore, purses can never be a conversation anymore, right? Once I put out my numbers, and you agree the numbers, that is what the increase in purse is. And the beautiful thing about it is that is going to be what the minimum purse is. There's nothing that says that the purse can't be higher. So, for example, last year we agreed to put an additional minimum of 40 million on the purse, but when the year was done, the actual increase in purse was over $80 million.
Wow.
And, so for this year, we're happy that, we were able to, again, move the purse by another $60 million minimum. And that, after we had our audit in March 28th, we were able to confirm those numbers. We have shared those numbers with the negotiating team that would represent the jockeys, the trainers, the owners, and so they should be very happy at that. And so we did that a couple of days ago, and then we followed through with the Mute Mile. But then Caymanas is potentially one of the hottest racetracks now in the world. In January, we signed with an entity that's called TVG/FanDuel. They are the largest media platform that's dedicated solely to horse racing. So you have a TV channel that they just carry horse racing from all the different tracks in North America. And to have been able to be now placed on TVG was a massive thing. And, congrats to Solomon and his team there, because the pace at which we have been growing our export business, the guys at Naira said, hey, we think there's an opportunity to put you on TVG. And since we have been on, we have just seen the revenues continue to increase. So we've just come back from a trip from Hong Kong, where we're now going to put in another new type of bet, which we think the punters will like, which is going to increase the revenues. We're at the Asian Racing Conference in Melbourne, Australia, where we met a lot of the movers and shakers, not just in Australia but across the world, Asia, England, etc. So we're making our presence known at all of these different places. So, we go to the Triple Crown, we're going to Ascot in England, and those are the people that we're having conversations with, because we want them to start to carry and buy horses here in Jamaica, because if you have that quality and type of person coming here, it's going to help to improve the quality of racing here, the blood stock here.
Right.
So we've done a lot of work.
You made some commitments. Have you lived up to your commitments with the government?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. One of the key factors. You had mentioned before that we took it over, but what we did, we got a lease. We have a 30-year lease with an option for another 30 years, and we pay our lease amount every year. But one of the key items, we were to invest a minimum of $500 million over 5 years.
Right.
We got the track, I think, in February 2017. As at February 22 last year, February 2022, our investment was in excess of $3 billion.
Wow.
So
we have committed 500. You've invested $3 billion.
We have invested over $3 billion. So what happened is that they might have said, here are the 12 things you need to invest for $500 million. We might not have done exactly 12 things,
right,
but we have done 74 things that works out to $3 billion. So if anybody looks out and says, well, you have not put in the elevator.
Yeah. I
have not put in the elevator, because the elevator I got from the government was rotten, and we had to throw that away, and we got another elevator.
Right.
And then the current building was not structured to have an elevator. So to build a shaft to put the elevator in costs more than the elevator. It don't make sense.
Yeah.
But there are plans to ultimately put a wonderful facility out there, which later in the year we'll speak to. I think one of the biggest game changers, we signed a solar deal. We've put solar out there. We've seen the benefits coming from that. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten the full benefit, because once we completed the project and we're now going to bring the stables on, we now realize that the wiring that we inherited is bad. And so again, it's a situation like that, where, we bought something and people expected all was well, but as you keep going to do things,
dig deeper,
there are other things that come up. So it was not in the contract that you have to rewire the entire place, but when you're having shots and whatever, you have to rewire the entire place. Right. But what it has now done is the solar is in place. We're having some savings, not what we projected, because we have to do some other work. And it has now put us in a position where, as the chairman announced yesterday, it's very likely that by the time the Mute Mile comes around on December 2nd, we would be running the Mute Mile under lights.
Wow.
So we are now, once we sort out the wiring issue and we're fully connected solar, we will be looking to invest in putting lights out at Caymanas, and that would allow us to now start to run races later, and we can actually run more races. And then if you understand the business of a racetrack, there might be certain markets that you want to beam your signals to. And so because of the time difference, depending on where it is, you can then move your card on certain days so that the key race ends up being raced here at maybe 8 o'clock, and it's prime time for them over there. So that just opens up the business to another level. And then the best part about it, once you put lights out at Caymanas, it was interesting because Senator Matthew Samuda, I have to thank him, because he came and when we launched our solar, when the solar was put in place, he came over and, they're usually so busy, it's difficult to get, a minister of government to come to your openings,
Yep.
And so having Matthew there, we're very appreciative. And he made a comment. He said, listen, with this solar plant, Caymanas can become the economic hub of St. Catherine, if not Portmore. And, one of the ideas we have, we can now populate the infield with a whole bunch of things. We could now potentially have a night market. So instead of going downtown, the people of the residents of Portmore and St. Catherine can come to Caymanas under lights and buy your fresh produce, you know. So on your way home, right, you know, usually have these traffic jams and stuff. Just stop by Cayman and shop, buy your stuff. By the time you finish, you'd have a nice leisurely ride back to your home. So, you know, we're very, very excited about the next phase of Caymanas because, again, similar to SVL, where people thought it was just a gaming company, we are now expanding, what you call it, laterally, horizontally, up, down,
new
sideways,
new
markets, different countries, different days, you know, and that's what we're seeing across the group. Almost every business that we have, you know, the potential that's there is just huge. You know, so we're now looking at raising more capital to take on some of these opportunities, you know, because they don't come along often.
Right.
And, you know, we don't want to make them pass, and we believe we can make it profitable. So, you know, again, you know, Solomon, the new team that's out there. I want to thank Lorna Gooden. You know, she did great work for us, but she moved on. But no, we have now discovered Aswanda Stoddart, you know, and Chris Wills. You know, two youngsters who are just as energetic. You know, I said to somebody the other day when we got Caymanas, nobody wanted to talk about Caymanas. Nobody wanted to go to Caymanas, right? And I looked at Solomon the other day and said, you know that we now have resumes for every single position at Caymanas. And several of these resumes are coming from racetracks across the world that host premier races.
Wow.
Right? So all of a sudden, no, nobody wants to leave Caymanas, right?
Nice.
And then you have a whole bunch of people trying to get into Caymanas. So, you know, it's a sign of a job well done, and it's a sign of exciting things to come. And, you know, I'm very proud of where they are, what we've achieved. And I'm just looking forward to the next one because, as I said, the theme for the Mute Miles, you know, 'cause you have to make sure the ladies are involved. It's Kings and Queens. Right? And you can go as wide as you can be the king and queen of Africa. You can be the king and queen of dancehall. So, you know, that side of it where you create an infield for a day of pageantry and just enjoyment, you know, for the biggest race. We're looking forward to that. You know, we're now seeing where sponsors are interested in getting into racing. And we had a very interesting situation, you know, where we reached out to financial institutions, you know, and they're like, oh no, our brand don't want, that should be associated with horse racing, you know? And I'm like, okay. And then I go to Hong Kong and I'm speaking to the marketing manager in Hong Kong, and she's like, her problem is that her top 10 sponsors are all banks.
Wow.
Right? And she's trying to get other sponsors other than banks. And I'm like, you want to switch? But what it is that when you look at horse racing in Hong Kong on a Sunday, it is seen as a place to go. You carry your mother and father goes, they carry the family, or your boyfriend and girlfriend goes, and you sit in a nice, wonderful environment. You get gourmet food depending on the level you're at, and you have a different structure for different socioeconomic levels. Yeah. So, you know, from where the masses are, you know, and they cater to them, and it becomes a destination. It becomes an experience. Yeah. And you know that when we see that, we're like, but we can do that.
Yeah.
That's something we can do. We do it a lot in Jamaica, right? But it's just to design it, structure it properly. And as I said, I think we have the best team out there to do that. And just where Caymanas is going is just amazing, exciting.
Excellent. I can tell you're excited about it.
Oh God.
Well, so let me jump to the questions from social media, and I can tell we've answered a few of them. And the first one I want to take would be a follow-up on Caymanas. I think it's Devin. He's basically saying, so is it, you know, cash flow positive? Is it what's the ROI like? And is there a possible future spin-off of SVR-EL in the future?
Well, I'll answer the first one, the last one first. Yes. I mean, we have set up the SVL group in a way where at any point in time, it's structured in a way where we try to find the most efficient way to finance them. So whether it is determined that it has to be an IPO, then we can split off that specific subsidiary, raise the capital, etc. So that's not a problem. Okay. What people don't understand is that our mantra, we believe in win-win-win. right? And if you're in an ecosystem, you never want to be a drag on the ecosystem. So you don't want to just be sucking out all the money and it's just for you. If I can create a structure where I can share with everybody, everybody is making money, the whole ecosystem becomes more harmonious, right? So we're not there yet. We're not there as yet.
Right.
Local racing continues to lose money. It doesn't lose as much money as it did in the past. And but we're certainly managing the business that hopefully one day local racing will be profitable. The beauty about Caymanas is that a racetrack is usually the largest green space in an environment, in an ecosystem. And our infield at Caymanas is approximately 80 acres, right?
Infield.
The infield.
Wow.
And we're seeking to put a variety of solutions that can generate revenues on that infield, right? So, am I going to put a laser tag field? Laser tag is part of an Olympic sport, but laser tag is an electronic gun, right? So is that a place for you to go and enjoy that, without anybody getting harmed, right? So, we could put an eye where when you get to the top of that, the view you have from Caymanas from 50, 60 feet up is amazing. And so you would look at putting complementary revenue generating things in the middle of in the infield. Again, when we were in Hong Kong, you could not find a single space on the infield. Wow. So they have 2 racetracks in Hong Kong. At the Happy Valley racetracks, they had 13 different football fields. Wow. And they had kids playing on them, etc. So every track has a different thing that they do with their infield. But the Caymanas property is 203 acres. Yeah. Wow. And so we can bring in and we can put in a lot of things that the ecosystem, the community of Portmore, St. Catherine, and to a certain degree Kingston would be able to take advantage of. And we could do it and make a reasonable return on that as well. So a racetrack earns revenue in a variety of different ways. Right. On the face of it, yes, it's from the betting. But there's sponsorship, which we need. There's a huge opportunity there because we don't have a lot of sponsors. There is rental income, right? Because again, we have the space, we have the parking, so it can be a place for you to come and rent. So we're going to put in place. We could potentially put in a massive stage on the infield, so that anybody that wants to have a musical festival, you can have it on the infield of Caymanas. We just put in a digital tote board, and people are after us and say, "Why don't you put in some seats so that we can have a movie night?" These are things that can be done because it's HD. It's a wonderful event.
There's huge potential for expansion
Lots.
at
Caymanas.
Okay. Let me keep it moving, given that we only have approximately 10 minutes left.
Oops, and Caymanas is 30.
Absolutely. And hopefully Mikey JB answered your question. He wanted to know any update on entertainment activities at Caymanas, and Gary just spoke about huge potential there.
Right. But we're now doing the domino tournaments.
That's right. How's that been?
So we've had two events so far. We had 3 pilots. The pilots were pretty good. Montego Bay was slow but exciting. Spanish Town started to show what the potential is. The next one is April 23rd at Caymanas, and the excitement around that is building. I expect that is now going to start to show the true value of it.
Right.
So as you've heard schools talking about dominoes in school, a big thing. I was telling somebody the other day, it's so ironic. I was almost suspended from Campion because we were caught playing dominoes.
I wonder who came up with this idea of the domino competition. You don't have to answer that question.
I did.
Moving right along, Diana Heyman asks, when will be the first dividend payment for the Bondberry? So Diana, not quite the topic. First dividend payment was already made because that was a special dividend payment.
Interest payment. It's
first,
not
yes, and the first interest payment, because it really is a bond, not a preference share. First interest payment was due 31st of March. So I believe, speak to your brokers. Those funds should be in your account as of today. Chester Francis, congratulations on your success to date. Speaking of phone credit, is there a SVL debit/credit card in the offering? Debit/credit card in the offering?
It's something that could come depending on what's required. Once you get a digital platform, all of those solutions, it's just a simple software to put in place.
Yeah, but the mobile wallet would effectively be like a debit card.
So for the record, I didn't speak about a mobile wallet. Dan
I am the one
intimated
that's
right?
Correct, that's correct.
But what
that's
I'll
correct.
say to you is that in the phone credit business, we have actually innovated in that business as well. So we have what is called ChargeUp. ChargeUp is our proprietary system that is electronic.
Right.
So we do both. The card that you speak about still exists.
Yes, yeah.
So we do that with our partner IGT.
Okay.
But we also have our proprietary phone card business, which is all digital, which is helping that growth you saw at a high level.
Yes.
The majority of that growth, actually more than all of that growth, came from our proprietary system. So what we've found...
So how can one use this to do their top-up, your charge-up?
Yeah, you just speak to Jesus Johnston or Dwayne Tolo and we'll sign you up. But you can either do it from the Cash App, etc.
Okay.
So it's that ChargeUp is all digital.
Right.
And so what we've done is as we go across and we look on what the customers are asking for, we try and find solutions for them. So the point, Chester, is that at this point in time, if you're getting into debit card, credit card type things, you're now falling under, the authority ambits of the Bank of Jamaica, the regulators, etc. And we're not going to do anything that is outside of the right and proper way to go. So, we'll make the necessary applications if we think there's demand and desire for it. And ultimately, we'll be there to compete.
Absolutely. Of course, I keep saying it, I can see the mobile wallet, I can see using this.
It's just point of sale. It's
places.
a natural extension to what I was saying, but I just want to make the point I didn't say.
Yeah, very, very important. Very, very important. I'm the independent analyst. I don't have nothing to do with SVL guys. Mikey J asks, will you be doing any partnerships with the Ghana lottery? So maybe that came much earlier before you spoke about.
Yes. So that's a very good question.
Partnerships with the Ghana lottery.
At this point in time, when you speak about partnerships, I want to be very clear. What we are discussing is SVL using their proprietary lottery software is entering into an agreement to provide the services. So if you think about our partner IGT here, where IGT provides their lottery software service to us.
Pay for that.
And we actually pay anywhere between 30 to 50 million US a year, which is almost equivalent to our total profit, right?
Yes,
that's the role that we intend to take with the lottery provider
in Ghana.
So the lottery provider in Ghana is the equivalent of SVL in Jamaica. And SVL Ghana is the equivalent of IGT here, right?
So you'll be providing all of this technology for them to run their platform and operate.
And plus other services, I mean, when the conversation is complete. So the point about partnership, it would then be, would I be able to find another technical partner to complement my solution to the provider, or there are other management services, maybe like marketing, where I could partner with someone. So at this point, the answer to that question is no. We actually have all of those tools, and we basically are going down the road of doing it on our own. It's a very big ask. It's a very big task.
Right.
So, if we're successful, we're going to announce a CEO who's likely, for SVL Ghana, who's likely to be a Jamaican CEO. And we're going to have to carry our best practices to go internationally and, set up all that different structures and, we're good to go.
So conceivably, you guys could be helping them sell phone credit in Ghana in the same way IGT assists you here.
Again, Dan, and then again, Dan, I didn't say anything. I'm just simply
analyst in me.
I'm just simply saying, I can only speak to the extent that I'm showing an intention.
Yeah.
What I will say is we're a business that wants to give a return to our shareholders, and we're a business that seeks to create and unlock value. And I think what the most I will say is that I think the Ghana opportunity would not be limited to just providing technical services.
Got you, sir. Hear you loud and clear. Shelly-Ann Parkinson asks, how will SVL be implementing these lights? Any partnership with Fostridge or other listed companies or solar energy companies possible?
Well, I mean, we had a solar partner that had implemented the solar solution there. And they had actually made a recommendation at the time to put in the lights. And so to move towards the whole lighting solution is not a significant jump.
Okay.
But it would require a design of the place because, again, it's what we find is that it's very easy at a high level to say you're doing certain things. When we get into the weeds, especially out at Caymanas, that's when you're reminded that this is a very old place. So, over time, the least cost provider always won.
Yeah.
So you will end up with 1 millimeter wire when it's supposed to be 2 millimeter wires, right? And you have a stretch of wire that should be all 2 millimeter wire. You have 1/2 millimeter this, that. It's just a thing, right? So, we just have to deal with those. And unfortunately, it takes time. But we feel that we'll be able to get it done and dusted certainly before the Mute Mile, which is December 2nd.
Got it. So we look forward to that. And with that, I think we only have time for 2 more questions. And I think I had one or 2 more technical ones when I read the financial statements. To be frank, I saw two of your direct costs, which I found very interesting, Gary. So could you explain to us what is your gross profit surcharge that you carry in your financial statements? It was $4.77 billion for the year ended 2022. It's a direct cost called gross profit surcharge.
I believe that's the government gaming tax.
Okay, that's the government gaming tax.
The government would charge us 20% of our GGR.
Right. So that's one of the costs. And
yes.
then the second one for me was your good cause fees.
Right, that's
$2.8 billion. Good cause. That's an expense, people. Good cause fees.
It's so interesting because when I speak about the 10.4 billion,
yes.
Because it's in most lottery companies in the world, we've been advised to speak more about our charitable contributions, right? But for some reason, people don't associate them with us.
Yes.
And so the good cause fees is the Chase for. So Chase is called a good cause.
Yes.
So that is the monies that we send there. And as I said, some people don't understand how difficult it is to generate these kinds of revenues to make these payments. But when you stop and think about it, one entity pumping $10 billion into the government coffers, it's not a bad thing.
And again, folks, I didn't set this up. These were genuine questions I was asking because I saw the gross profit surcharge increase by approximately 16%, and I saw your good cause fees, which I now understand, increasing by closer to 20%. So again, you guys are giving back more to the economy, making direct contributions. Again, I swear to you guys, these are just genuine. I don't,
put it this way: we are drawing the checks as to whether the people running these things draw additional checks that gets into the economy. I have no control over. I'm doing my part.
Right. Well, I'm happy to know that you guys are making these positive contributions because I was really excited to have heard the budget. I think it was a great budget. I'm really excited about the prospects for Jamaica over the next 3 to 5 years, and it's great to know that my second favorite investing entity is making this significant contribution, which I didn't realize. And so another reason why I'm in love with SVL, not just because of the capital gains and the great dividends I get, but to know that it is in fact making this notable contribution to the economy. And this is pretty significant, $10.4 billion in the last year alone. So with that, Gary, no more questions for me, but I will allow you for the next 60 seconds any other point that you want to make about SVL. I felt like we spent a lot of time on Caymanas specifically, but any other point you want to make about SVL before we close out in the next few minutes?
I think the key point about SVL is that I don't think enough investors really understand what the business is about. It's a very dynamic and evolving business. So, for example, when we announced that we had gotten our proprietary lottery software certified, I think the stock fell today, and I said to somebody, if this was an international company, if it was a company in a different environment, the stock would have jumped, and simply because it allowed the company to now go into a new, for a better word, blue ocean, you know. And, you know, hopefully Ghana is the first of several. And, you know, as you get countries and get these deals done, it's going to start to trigger a massive flow of revenue and income, you know. And, you know, that is what that's what the core of the company currently is. You know, we're pivoting in certain instances to digital, primarily to initially to offer our services there. But in doing that, we realize that we're one of the most efficient and least cost providers of some of these things. So that now has created another blue ocean in terms of payments, etc., and the associated businesses associated with payments and stuff. And then when we look, we're like, hey, we've done this at probably a fraction of what some of the big name developers would have done it for. And then, you know, we're finding that, you know, we can actually start developing stuff for other people. So, you know, people should take the time and take a look on a company. You know, obviously, as you indicated, Dan, the PE might seem a little rich. But what people need to appreciate about a PE is not that it's only when it's in 10 times you must buy. PE is also a predictor of the future growth rate. You know, so if you think, if you ask me if this business can grow at 26% per annum for the next 10 years, I'll tell you it's low. You know, so, you know, and I explain that simply by, if we're able, again, I repeat, if we're able to do what we did in Jamaica, to make 20 million US in Jamaica, a population of 3 million people. If we go into a population of 30 million people and we can do the same thing,
or even half the same,
thing,
$100 million,
right? It's 100 million US, which is 5 times where we are.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if we're able to find another equivalent country, it just keeps going, right? So, you know, when you ask the question about how many countries, the reality, Dan, is that for an average individual, one country is fine. You know, you can potentially grow your revenue 5 times, right? So, you know, if you look on and say 3, 4, 6, 7, what do you do? Are we going to get to a point that every time we announce a new country, what's going to happen to the stock?
Yeah, I'm going to go buy some more tomorrow. Well, you know, what can I say, folks? You know, it was great, Gary, you know, having this conversation. Unfortunately, folks, that's it for today's discussions. I'd like to thank our viewers, as usual, for tuning in and for your support and for the great questions that we got today. I want to give a big up to Gary for making time out to come and make this presentation. We really appreciate it, and I think you guys can appreciate why the stock is still undervalued. If you're curious about today's updates or future updates to come about our virtual investor forum in the future, please check us out on social media. We share live stream dates and upcoming guests on our social media pages. So give us a follow to learn more things forum related. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mayberry Investments Limited. Click that like bell to receive notifications. So folks, keep safe, and remember, wise investors, slow and steady wins the race. Goodbye.
The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum has been the standard for investor education in Jamaica for decades, where top financial minds provide comprehensive insight into the market and ideal investment strategies and opportunities for our clients. Celebrating 37 years of excellence in investment banking. The Mayberry Virtual Investor Forum, investing in Jamaica.